5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to have you join us today for the Dell and VMware powered and strategy sponsored webinar on what promises to be a very interesting theme called Cloud Without Chaos. To join me in this very interesting panel discussion, I have with me very eminent IT and industry practitioners from around India. The fact that we are in a webinar is proof of the fact that irrespective of what the situations might be out there, work continues to carry on, powered by the technologies and the advancements that emerging technologies have made in today's day and age. Without further ado, I would like to introduce my panelists, and in no order of priority, Mr. G.G. Rao, very senior IT professional and Vice President for IT at Usha International. Mr. Rao, welcome to you, sir. It's a pleasure having you with us. I also have the pleasure of having with us Mr. Tejveer Bhogal, Head of Alliances and Governance for the Bennett & Coleman Group. Tejveer, pleasure to have you with us, sir. Always lovely to have you share your views. I also have Alok Baidia from VMware, Senior Systems Architect, been with VMware for a while now, who will also be sharing his views on how he sees the entire orchestration of industry multi-cloud journeys take place. And last but not the least, Vaibhav Yadav, Senior V Architect with Dell Technologies, will also be sharing his views with us today. Without further ado, if I may be allowed to mention this, is that we live in a world today, a digital economy or an age really, that is unprecedented in its ability to throw about and bring about transformation in data, transformation in workloads, and transformation overall at a level that is fairly unprecedented. Now, if all of these were to be true, traditional cloud journeys that have classically been architected perhaps may not be very relevant today, which essentially means that cloud journeys will have to be reimagined and rethought. With that in mind, I'm going to come to each of you. Mr. Rao, if I may come to you, sir, first, please. Organizations today have multiple strategies, and therefore the imperative is multiple cloud journeys. Now, in your view, at Usha International, as well as in previous avatars that you may have essayed in your IT roles, how do you see the entire concept of business value, strategy, and multi-cloud or hybrid cloud journeys kind of play out? Mr. Rao, sir.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Lovely.
See, when we started my journey in the cloud when I was in HCL, we were so thrilled that we really create a big mammoth platform to serve the world. That's our thought, in fact. That's where today what you call it as on-prem private kind of a cloud, what we do, when all major players in the world started doing it. So way back 7 years, that was the one which is the
Oh, yes, back in the day.
Yeah, that's what that is. See, today when you see that, of course, so Usha has been really a forefront in many of the cloud adoption compared to the similar players in the market, in the sense that for FMCD kind of a companies like us, apart from the product, which is more or less similar in many ways, but the service is a big differentiator.
Sure.
So one of our first cloud journeys where, before me, the earlier people who had done was that having completely CRM services on the cloud, which is a SaaS based. So which was there in AWS, which was not in India at that time. So which was hosted out of Singapore or somewhere else. And then that was the earlier journeys where it is. So that means the kind of an adaptation, the willingness to really put your business in the cloud was there most. And then there were a huge number of challenges what earlier people as well as me who have faced in running it. And often we say that, why don't we bring it back onto the premises? Whenever we face an uphill task in change management or maybe the delivery, we always feel that let's come back. But always the service providers were coming forward to really give us whatever best they could. but that was smoothening over the years which I had seen it. Then raises the expectation of it. Why can't we really have the similar thing replicated, if not in the SaaS model, maybe the other models which emerged in this market? So then came about really hosting some of the other workloads on AWS or Azure or kind of a thing what we have. So by and large, in over last 4 years, we had this kind of a cloud adaptation both in SaaS model or hosting model or something which we are also trying to really improve what we could do it on-prem. So that's the overall journey what we had over the last 5 years here. And there are the huge strategies which are being built to go ahead further, which we'll be describing it.
Outstanding. Very, very interesting set of views. Mr. Vogel, if I may come to you, Bennett and Coleman, one of India's largest media houses, the kinds of work loads really that you would be orchestrating must be mind-boggling at least, and coupled with the copious terazones of data that you would have. How do you see the entire hybrid and multi-cloud journey kind of play out, both for your organization as well as industry as a concept?
Thanks, Arjun. Very interesting question and very interesting domain to be talked about. I'll answer that in two folds, Arjun. One, from a media perspective, yes, you are very right. We have a humongous amount of data, and our own legacy, which is almost 180 years old now, shows that yes, the amount of data that we have generated in these so many decades, how do we cater to that? How do we really bring it forward to the consumer today? So we have been able to address this scenario in two folds. One, having a go at the public cloud, which is available for all the organizations that we have, and the second is have our own internal private cloud.
Okay.
For example, to talk about the public cloud, we first early adopters actually, and first one in the media as a vertical in India to go ahead with the public cloud offering of Microsoft. And this is, I'm talking about way back in 2012-13. We were one of those early adopters, and that too was a hybrid environment at that point.
Oh, it was.
Oh, yes. In fact, a lot of recognition from many consulting organizations and partners were inferred on BCCL for that.
I love it.
Having said that, we went ahead with the complete HR transformation journey, which was again on cloud. And very off late, we went ahead with our entire customer relationship management services on cloud. So that's on the public side of it. Having said that, we realized that at some point in time, being a media organization, we need to connect with our consumers as well. And
absolutely.
That's where the business came back and said, why can't we have offerings and inclusivity from our consumers? And that's when we launched our application, which is the Citizen Reporter app, which is again on Microsoft Azure platform. And that's one cloud offering which brings or which makes the citizens as the reporters for us. And that has not only helped us include the reports from the citizens and publish it in the newspaper, but it has actually worked in a 360-degree view, whereby we, along with the municipal authorities, have been able to address those problems.
Outstanding.
So that's a benefit of cloud. Having said that, on the other hand, what it has done is it has helped us achieve something which we in our IT world call it as an omni experience, both for our consumers as well for the business per se. So I think that in a nutshell is what my take would be on the overall cloud journey.
Very, very, very interesting. Alok, I am going to come to you. You heard two sets of viewpoints, all of them pretty much or fairly largely converging around the fact that hybrid or multi orchestration journeys really is where organizations are seeing value. You've been with VMware. You're at the heart and center of creating and crafting these orchestrations. How do you see it if you were to bring technology and business value and business requirements together? How do you kind of see it playing out?
Thanks, Arjun. I guess you heard from Mr. Rao as well as Mr. Bhogal on the need for cloud, right? So I think gone are the days essentially people were thinking that should I even consider cloud? I think today every organization which we go to, there is some conversation of cloud now, whether it's a private cloud, whether it's a public cloud or a hybrid cloud or a multi-cloud. So I know there are so many terms which have come in
True
with
that.
so many clouds. But yes, the journey is real. So the need for moving to cloud, whether it is especially to bring in a kind of elasticity so that there could be like, interesting example which Tejveer talked about, a CRM application moving to cloud, because these are, possibly at certain point of time, there would be suddenly huge load on that infrastructure which needs to be taken care of because of certain campaigns which possibly the organization would want to run in for. So different scenarios are coming in. So it could be even, for interestingly. So today we are in doing all these conversation in a virtual world. So where we even prepared for that. So today, a lot of even organizations are going back to those kind of scenarios where if I have to provision an infrastructure at a very minimal time, that's where people are definitely looking at a choice between cloud. Now, since a choice of clouds are there across so many different service providers, whether it's a private cloud, whether it's a public cloud, hence the whole thing about how can I now easily start moving workloads, I mean, without the least amount of disruption, without the least amount of downtime, can I move my workloads seamlessly and still get the flexibility which cloud gives me today. That's the essence which we are even seeing in the market, and that's where as an organization we have been focused across that whole approach, that our solution should be able to help the organizations who are wanting to adopt cloud in the way they would want to adopt cloud.
I couldn't agree more. Well, I'm going to come to you for your quick take on that. So I liked something that Alok said. There's so much jargon going around. How do you, as Dell Technologies, you're also equally at the heart of it. How do you help them sift through the mist, really, see the woods from the trees, while everything is happening, yet ensure that at every stage of the process, there's value being delivered and true, measurable, credible value being delivered?
Yeah, thank you, Arjun. So, thanks for the point of views of our esteemed panelists. Right, what is a common theme that came out is that what we are seeing is multiple needs, right, which result in cloud sprawls or emergence of multiple clouds within each and every organization, right? So I'll take an example of the Indian banking sector. So what we are seeing is a lot of mergers and acquisitions in this space, and this is happening across the industry. It is also very imperative to say that today each and every organization has a cloud first strategy. It could be a public cloud or a private cloud or a hybrid cloud, depending upon their initiatives. And what we are seeing is that with the mergers and acquisitions coming in, all the organizations usually have a different or an independent IT strategy, hence a different cloud strategy. Now, mergers and acquisitions is one of the factors due to which hybrid cloud makes more sense, but there are multiple factors like shadow IT, cloud native applications, some risk mitigation issues, government also, can I just pause there?
Sure. Vishnu, we're taking a pause there for 7 seconds. When you're ready, Vaibhav, just let me know, because I'll have to create a bridge so that when we are editing,
Okay.
we'll know how to cut it there.
Yeah, okay, I'm almost done. So
all right, so when you're ready, just give me the thumbs up, okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Very interesting.
So apart from this, what we are seeing is that there are unique services provided by cloud providers like AWS and Azure, and organizations want to move their data from a private cloud to a hyperscaler and back.
Interesting, very interesting. I'm going to kind of twist this entirely around. Tejveer, with your permission, sir, if I will come to you. Gone are the days when traditional methods really, and if I were to kind of boil down everything that each of you mentioned, it kind of boils down to the fact that the needs and requirements of businesses today or organizations today is very, very different from what it used to be, even as both you gentlemen, in fact, all of you are mentioning, even as it were 5 years back. Gone are those days. So really, if I were to kind of bring it down, I would say scale and agility are really the two imperatives that organizations are looking at. Now, very interestingly, while you're looking at scale and agility as organizational requirements or organizational imperatives, it is also a fact that there continues to be tons of legacy infrastructure. And now, all of a sudden, you've got legacy infrastructure, and legacy not necessarily in any offensive manner whatsoever, but just the fact that, well, something that was day before yesterday cannot be what technology promises us today. In your experience, how do you kind of couple legacy infrastructure with new age technologies to orchestrate this entire journey that promises really, as VMware and Dell are telling us, fairly immeasurable and disproportionate business value? How do you kind of do that in your experience?
Thanks, Arjun, for putting you on the spot again, as always. So there is no straight answer to this, to be very honest. It is entirely based on the business demands. And as imperatives change, so ideally is the technology landscape or the decision on what solution or technology should be there to aid the business. Taking the cue from today's environment, especially when you're talking about COVID and all that stuff, work from home or a virtual environment,
the gig economy,
we as media, we have a huge task at hand, wherein our teams, especially the editorial or people who are responsible for writing those stories, and scenarios where the print gets published but has to be delivered to the end consumer. There could be areas where it is not possible due to lockdown or due to containment. That is where the technology has taken leaps and bounds, and we have been able to publish our e-paper, which ensures that every consumer is able to read as to what is getting printed and being made aware of the scenario.
And this is available vernacular languages also, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. This is across all print editions that we have. Wow. And this is available globally today. Okay. While any consumer expects the newspaper to be delivered anywhere between 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., the e-paper also gets delivered around the same time.
Wow. Oh, you kind of mashed the two. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's technology. That's just one. And that's a huge area. The second part is, and that's a standard answer, which is there, that today the business demands need for speed. It talks about real-time availability of any application or any campaign that we want to launch. And as Alok ventured in his previous statements, it all depends on the campaigns that any business would expect to run. For example, we ran a lot of campaigns in the past, which is about lost votes or water conservation, or Teach India movements. All these campaigns were using the latest cloud platform or cloud technologies available from Azure or from AWS, because these are short-term campaigns. But as you rightly mentioned, we have a huge challenge for the legacy applications. And that's primarily on the print side of it, which helps us or enables us to print the newspaper. Now, all these applications are legacy, which do not support the cloud environment.
Sure that.
And that's where the private cloud, which we have been able to set up internally, helps us both scale out
as well as scale in, as well
as scale in. So that's where the difference is. And I think we are fortunate to manage that.
Outstanding. Mr. Rao, before I come to you, sir, I am going to take this to Alok. Alok, you just heard Tejveer make some very, very logical points. A lot of the legacy applications perhaps may not. How do you help organizations in cases such as these?
I think that's an interesting point, and a point which it is, I would say, as an organization, it's worth really doing a deep dive. So let me possibly take a moment to give you a little background. So when we started off, the first thing what we started off is, okay, how can I start modernizing the data center? So that time, the whole concept of bringing in virtualization was the first thing what we did. And then once the virtualization was done, then the whole question about, okay, now that I'm able to use any hardware in the data center, how can I now start extending it to any storage, any kind of network? And then when cloud came in, as Tejveer was mentioning, the first challenge was, am I really ready for cloud? Now that is where we saw as an need for us to get into back to engineering and say, hey, you know what? Today the need for possibly utilizing cloud is there, right? So how can I move a legacy application without making any change?
Yeah.
Move to cloud. That's the first thing as a challenge, what we gave back to the engineering. And that's where we got a revert from our engineering and that's the thing what we partnered with AWS, Azure, Google, practically all public cloud service providers, as well as the huge amount of private cloud service providers like a NetMagic or similar or these organizations. So if my stack of virtualization can be extended across these public cloud service providers, it would be a matter of just doing a lift and shift of those legacy applications itself to move to cloud. So here, what essentially is happening is, even though your application might not be yet ready to take those native services to cloud, you are still able to move to cloud because your business demands so. Now,
True that.
very interestingly, what Tejveer said, it is not just about running it on cloud. If at all at a certain point of time I say, okay, I do not want to now run it on cloud, the whole problem was, can I bring
Very
it back?
interesting.
Because that is where the whole essence lies, that the ability to move a workload from, let's say, on-premises, your private cloud, to a public cloud and then bring it back. Or for that matter, since we are talking of a multi-cloud, so if as an organization you feel that, okay, I'm not yet not really wanting to run this service out of a particular cloud service provider, can I simply take it and move it to any other cloud service provider?
Very, very interesting. But Alok, I'm just going to hold you on your thought there. I'm going to go to Mr. Rao. Mr. Rao, you heard a convergence of views here. At the end of the day, I'm presuming you would have observed it too, is that there are at times comes a juncture where the process of the journey is as is envisioned or envisaged, but then there comes a roadblock with a legacy application. How, in your view, really, have you orchestrated any addressing of these issues? And therefore, my question to you is, what is therefore your expectation from service providers such as Dell and VMware to be able to bring to the table for you so that business continues as usual? There's no disruption.
Yeah. So one of my examples or my experiences of something like, so we all were trying to prepare ourselves when once Government of India announced GST.
Sure.
So that was the time where everyone wanted to really, without disrupting existing applications, we wanted to really develop GST or enable GST. That's where. So that's the time where we thought that why do we really invest so much on-prem? Why don't we really take an instance on the cloud and start really working? When once we are ready with the complete GST testing, bring it back. In fact, that was a thought, and then of course we made an effort to really put that particular legacy system of not the production, but a development and testing client onto that. But really, it was an uphill task. Finally, we were to really say, no, we were really warring against the time, and we were not able to proceed further. So finally, we were to really bring it back and then do the kind of what we said, that use existing infrastructure, scale it using kind of a VM, and then put it here rather than losing any time.
Sure.
So that's an experience. And then that itself has become again another bottleneck. Then we end up really going back into that and say that, why don't we really hire a server and put it for some time more? So yeah, of course, these are the challenging times where we had. So from that times, almost it's 2 years. But today, if you say that the similar workloads for anything, it could be for data management. It could be for having certain kind of a big change management in the processes of ERP. Okay, we were able to really do that. We did have a kind of a completely any kind of a what or VM virtual kind of a thing. It could be any technology what we have. We are able to scale it up and then meet the business demands today.
Okay.
So it's one of the positive notes. So while it was going this way, with an experience of almost forcing myself to really have create another box to rely on kind of a virtual missions to really do that scalability and agility as you have pointed out in the beginning. But this experience has given that when today our complete infrastructure has really come to certain kind of aging, we require to replenish or replace. So why do I really again go back and then put it either in the private cloud or public cloud? Why don't we create a small cloud replica for myself here?
Mirror it basically.
Yeah, that's what a completely complete cloud for myself to be on-prem, because today tools are available. Okay, the technology can be replicated using all, if not that, even most of the open source technologies are even still available and being supported by a major players. Okay, so when you have this second, and the third one is that you have all wherewithals to integrate other workloads, because it's not just one major workload of legacy what you're talking about. So those days when we were almost like 5-7 years back, the interfaces were far and few. But today, with mobility, with the data, with kind of an analytics which has to go from time to time to the users and stakeholders, and also the interfaces of different stakeholder connectivity like logistics or supply chains,
I
everything
couldn't
getting
agree more.
integrated. So your interfaces, and the moment you are touching the legacy, the other interfaces have to work to be successful. And that's where the problem is, that when you have this
I
kind
want
of
to
a
take that, sir, with your permission, to Vaibhav. Vaibhav, you just a very interesting sets of views. Really saying, see, legacy is a reality. There's no escaping that fact. But it's equally the business requirement that it is for experts such as yourselves to make legacy work and work well. Uh, while all of this is happening, you just heard Mr. Rao and earlier Tejveer
Yeah.
as well as Alok. Also, is that at no point of time do they want the visibility to be negated, which is across the entire infra and the architecture layer. In your experience and with the kind of work that you're doing at Dell Technologies, how do you ensure and guarantee, perhaps to the largest degree, a single pane of visibility?
Yeah, okay. So great views. Thanks to all the panelists. So the major challenge that we see today with our customers is they've got cloud initiatives for the cloud native applications, but there are many applications which are business critical running on legacy IT infrastructure, right? And there's no seamless movement from on-prem to cloud today, right? So what we are seeing is many organizations, they've tried to move all their data to a public cloud per se, and they are having challenges because of government mandates. They have to bring some data on-prem. There are some applications which are costing them more on-prem or off-prem. For example, if you might have heard about NASA taking more than 600 petabytes of data on AWS, right? But what happened was it resulted in a TCO which was 30 to 40% more than their estimates, right? Because of the egress cost. So today, organizations need the scale that is guaranteed by a hyperscaler, but at the same time, they want the agility to move
Indeed.
applications to and from. What we provide with a Dell Tech Cloud solution is for our customers to have the best of both worlds. Take the best out of private cloud, the security control, and again with the emergence of edge clouds, right? What we do is provide consistent operations packaged with our services with Dell top of the line infrastructure, right? We give our customers the choice and flexibility to have any cloud provider on the other end and have best of the breed solutions, providing a seamless operational experience from edge to core to cloud.
Very interesting there, however, but I will speak on behalf of both the CIOs here, which is both Tejveer as well as Mr. Rao, and for the larger audience really, is that Alok, uh, Vaibhav, Alok, maybe you want to take a stab at this. While all of that you have mentioned is indeed true, and increasingly organizations are seeing immeasurable value and sense in undertaking, well, what promises to be a complex journey. There are also worries about cost and security. And these are very, very significant in nature. Let's take Mr. Rao at Usha International. The copious volumes of consumer information that they'd have would be tremendous. Similarly, with Tejveer at BCCL, the kind of readership and reader information and data is humongous beyond belief. Now, while people are adopting and adapting to undertaking this journey, how do you allay those, well, I won't call it a fear, really, but those concerns about rising costs and potential security? How do you kind of stab that out of the entire equation? Alok?
Sure. I think that's an interesting question, because the moment we talk about modernization, the moment we talk of moving to cloud, the first thing which comes to definitely mind is the cost aspects. Now, the cost aspects could be looked at in different ways. So the first cost could be that if I'm trying to move to cloud, is my application even ready to be hosted on cloud? And I think we heard from everyone that that is something which automatically comes like, can my legacy run out of cloud? And that's where, when we really talk about app modernization, is there a way that I can start leveraging the infrastructure in a way that I move as is without making much changes? Then start taking, so once I'm comfortable on the cloud journey, that's where I start modernizing the application. So I move it, do a lift and shift, then start modernizing the application to start taking the services out of cloud services, and then make my application agile to that extent that I start using those application uh, specifics on the cloud services. The other aspect now comes is what you really talk on the security. Now, security in the cloud is composed of hundreds of configuration parameters. Now, ensuring proper configuration, monitoring malicious activity, preventing, for example, unauthorized access. Now, all of these is essential for protecting these applications, and especially when you're storing data in public cloud. Now, what typically happens is when you correlate risk across, let's say, a misconfiguration and threats which are rapidly changing. So typically the dynamic cloud environments in a real challenge for the team. So what we typically do in this kind of environments is we try to build solution, and that's what we have been doing, that periodically would scan the cloud accounts to validate the configuration which the organization has done of an object, for example, with the context of its surroundings. So what is it dependent upon? What are the kind of possibly where is supposed to be talking to, right? So am I seeing all the aspects which it's talking to, and we don't overlook those serious vulnerabilities which are there. Generate those false positives. That's how you make sure that you are really making sure that there's nothing wrong with that, and then create usage conflicts due to excessive possibly API calls to your cloud infrastructure. So you bring together this complete interconnected cloud security concept, where we say that see, as I said, the journey is real. It would have to happen some way or the other. So you mix together the knowledge about the infrastructure, the knowledge about the security aspect, blend it together, come out with best practices, run through the misconfiguration and the mismanagement credentials, like what it's really said. So at least like 95% of cloud breaches will be due to misconfiguration and mismanagement credentials. Now,
and you're really saying that that's something that between Dell and VMware you'd address extremely well. Tejveer, can I come to you quickly for your views without any of us getting into the real concept here, to ask you, is that really what you as large organizations would be expecting from service providers to bring to the table, especially security, because you can never be secure enough really in today's day and age.
Yes, Arjun. I think you are bang on, and Alok did try to address that. For us, very simply put, not just for us, but any other organization, I think the content security is the most important aspect for going
Yeah,
on
yeah,
cloud.
yeah, yeah.
And yes, I do also understand and appreciate the fact that it comes at a cost, but the total cost of ownership has to be considered while taking any such calls.
There we have it, Alok, Vaibhav. You heard Tejveer. Mr. Rao, if I may come to you for your quick views on that.
Yeah, that's very, very important. What's really happening in today's world is that though they are trying to address it, it's a addressed partially in my view.
Oh,
In
okay.
the sense,
Interesting.
yeah, in the sense that see, you need that. The moment there are two things what we are talking at this point of the time. One is that the security. The second thing is about the data confidentiality and integrity.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
indeed.
So while we do a lot of precautions and then we keep conducting a lot of audits called VAPTs or whatever we do it, okay, we still start finding out issues or maybe the kind of insights for us to plug in further is that this particular approach is insufficient because you end up really going to the security players, bringing their products in, trying to integrate. Sometimes it gets through well, sometimes it doesn't patch. So the layer of the security could be addressed only, but just not because of what Dell or VMware is telling, to be frank.
I
I
agree.
need
I thought
something more to really come along with this. And this is a layer which is there, which is going to really give a lot of confidence to the organization.
I'm sure both
Because we are,
Vaibhav and I'm sure both Vaibhav and Alok are taking very copious notes as you speak, sir. But I just have Tejveer here wanting to make an interjection. Tejveer, you had a point, please.
Yes, and just to add what Rao just mentioned on data confidentiality, especially with the GDPR coming into the picture and the Privacy Act in India per se, I think more and more organizations like or partners like VMware and Dell will have to bring in extra focus as to who will be liable for any breaches, if any. Purely from a
Heck,
governance perspective, I think liability is something which nobody is addressing at this point in time today.
there comes the spanner in the works. Vaibhav, you want to take a shot at this?
Yeah, so feedback, we'll take this feedback, and as you would have seen in the recent acquisitions in this space, security is one of the key focus with Dell and VMware. What we want to provide our customers is end-to-end secure solution. So you would have seen recent acquisition of VMware and Carbon Black. So that's getting integrated directly in the vSphere hypervisor. From a Dell perspective, what we are doing is straight from our factory to your doorstep, including the engineering that we're doing. We are ensuring that we follow the best practices. We ensure that it's not only on the logistics end, but on the engineering end as well, right?
Oh,
So the
interesting.
complete stack, we are trying to get third-party certifications as well. And hopefully, in the near future, with the acquisitions and the roadmap that we see in the organization, with security as a key focus, we'll be able to deliver as per our customers' expectations.
Outstanding. Alok, you had a point there.
Yeah, just one point to add to that. So, as you heard, that there is definitely a focus on the security aspects, and as an organization, we are looking at security as an intrinsic security. Now, what do we really mean by that is now, from a security perspective, the solutions what we are trying to bring to market is to make sure that the security elements are built into whatever we bring in today. So organizations, when they traditionally build infrastructure for general purpose use, so security teams are then tasked with protecting that infrastructure, that apps will run on it and devices that will access it. So essentially what we're trying to do is avoid those too many products, too many tools, too many interfaces, too many agents. So security doesn't need a new product, but basically what we are seeing, it's a new approach. So hence we're trying to build everything inside the solution itself. So
Oh, okay.
encrypted security is the way to go forward.
Outstanding. Uh, I must confess, I've loved your views, but I do have a view on the clock too. I'm going to kind of ask you one last parting question, really, and this is more contemporary. Over the last few days, we've seen an unprecedented change in how we as a country, we as citizens, we as professionals, we as employees, we as organizations have had to transform into, well, something that was fairly unprecedented and something that we've not really experienced. But increasingly, if all of you look at it, the levels of advancements in technology are really enabling a situation where geographical disbursements, geographical displacements, uh, disruptions, which, well, in this particular case, fairly a large human tragedy, but nevertheless an organizational industry-wide disruption is, and of course, the overall concept of how increasingly a lot of people, workers, professionals, uh, do not want to be domiciled in one place between 9 and 6 or 9 and 5 p.m., as the case may be, but would really like to be productive from wherever they are, which is the entire concept of the gig economy. And something that we are experiencing today, where five of us having a very interesting chat, thanks to the levels of ease and convenience that technology provides us. Uh, in all of this, in all of the transformation and disruption, really, your closing points on how you see all of this really coming together with the concept of how there is no need for workloads to necessarily be in any one place. They could pretty much be everywhere. Or, as the case may be with data and privacy and security issues in an on-prem kind of a scenario. How do you see multi-cloud or hybrid cloud journeys really pave the way for what the future holds for us? Mr. Rao, if I could come to you first, sir, with your permission.
Yeah, see, one of the things where you rightly said that the technology today, we are able to really speak like this. It's enablement of technology.
True that, sir.
We should really thank the kind of developments what really have been, and today we are able to do this. But while we do this, you see that one of the biggest enablers, what you can call it as, is that still people depend on the kind of a laptops or the desktops, the one what they are working for. You see major workforce, when once they said that you guys go and work from home, uh, the simple thing what they do not really have in the market today is a kind of a laptop, a portable computing machine. Okay, that's just because we still you carry laptop with the kind of operating systems or maybe the applications loaded in it. So what really is that the technology which has not caught up so far, which was there, is that, so why don't you have something like a desktop or laptop on the kind of a cloud basis? This is a virtual kind of a thing. You need just a simple dummy machine to connect to that, and you have all the workloads over there.
It's very fortuitous that you're mentioning this, sir, because you'd be very surprised to learn that Dell has a solution that goes by the name of Unified Workspace Solutions that really caters to something like this. And it essentially kind of funnels into the larger concept of how digital workspaces of the future should really be. But I really loved your views. In the interest of time, Tejveer, I'm going to go to you for your closing statement, sir.
For me, I think I'll just put it in 3 words:
Interesting.
flexibility, scale in, scale out, and security. If you are able to address all these 3 aspects in defining the business needs and the outcome thereby, I think there's no stopping or no disputing the fact that yes, multi-cloud architecture would be the way forward.
Wonderful. Vaibhav, for you, you heard what two very eminent gentlemen mentioned. You clearly know what business asks are and what industry demands today. How do you kind of close your closing remarks on this?
Yep. So what I see as a common theme is that businesses are dependent, or success for them means delivering digital services which are powered by data, right? And again, packaged by attributes like scalability, flexibility, as well as security, right? So what we are seeing across multiple verticals within the industry is emergence of multiple clouds. It could be private cloud. Some organizations find these attributes in private cloud, some in public, and we are also seeing emergence of edge cloud. And what we see as a trend, right, in Western countries is that it's not either or. It's not private cloud or a public cloud or a edge cloud. Organizations need all three. All three have different pros and cons, and this makes their IT very complex, right, to manage, which in turn increases their TCOs by multiple fold. It becomes very complex to manage, right?
I
So
agree.
what we offer as a solution in Dell Tech Cloud, along with Dell and VMware, is consistent operations packaged with security and services across all three layers.
Outstanding. Thanks, Vaibhav. Alok, your closing remarks on this, please.
I think we heard from the business side, what are they
Yes.
really expecting? You heard about Vaibhav talking about the way we approach it. So I would just want to close it by saying that this is the vision which we have been working on. So as Rao had said, can I work from anywhere? Can I work with any kind of device? And like what related back to what Tejveer said. So I need to have the security in place. I need to have the flexibility of possibly getting access to all my applications, not really compromising on the security aspects. Still, I should be able to work from anywhere, and that's what we are doing today, right? So work from home, but with the amount of security, with the amount of flexibility of what we need today, meeting the business goals of our organizations and making sure that still the data is secure.
Very interesting, isn't it, really? Is with the whole concept of the future of workspaces and the future of work, really. I think somewhere organizations and service providers must come together to figure out whether we are trying to recreate office at home or recreate the very culture of how work must be executed. But I guess that's something the future will tell us. The future has clearly given us an opportunity in these very trying times to take very bold steps with the kind of faith and belief that is demanded of us today. And I'm sure that I think as an industry together, we will come forward to doing that. But thank you, gentlemen. It has been an absolute privilege to have spoken with you, heard you share your views, and actually bring about some kind of a confluence of ideas and thought processes and business requirements that I'm sure the larger audience will find very interesting to take back and action in their own spaces. With that, Mr. Rao, Alok, Tejveer, Vaibhav, thank you very, very much for joining us. For the audience, thank you very much for joining us. Stay tuned in. There are a few more segments. We're going to continue talking about a lot of interesting things around how the future has given us an opportunity today to really move forward with the addition and the help of technology. So thank you very, very much. Good. I just realized, thank you guys. I think that was brilliant. Vishnu, if you could just come in quickly for a second, please.
Yeah, I'm here.
Vishnu, how much did we record, please?
So I'll be able to tell it after the video is processed.
वो तो है, correct. Okay, now listen, I just realized everybody did beautifully. In the beginning, I forgot to introduce myself here.
And you introduced me as an architect.
Oh, shit. Hey, shall we do that bit again? Vishnu?
Yeah, you can do that.
Senior Manager Systems Engineering.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to just do the introduction piece again, Vishnu. At my count, you're still recording, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm still recording.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, at my count, 1, 2, 3. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this very, very interesting webinar on Cloud Without Chaos, Reimagining the Future on Multi-Cloud Journeys. sponsored by Dell and VMware and powered by Strategy. My name is Arjun Vishwanathan. I'm the Chief Research Officer at Strategy. And with me, I have a very, very eminent panel today, which I would have the privilege of introducing, and in no specific order. Mr. G.G. Rao, Vice President IT at Usha International. Mr. Tejveer Bhogal, Head of Governance and Alliances at the Bennett and Coleman Group. Alok Baidia from VMware, who's a Senior Manager, Systems Engineering. And last but not the least, Vaibhav Yadav from DEC Technologies, who's a Senior V Architect. Gentlemen, good afternoon, and an absolute privilege to be having this conversation with you today. Vishnu, was it good?
Yeah, that was fine.
Lovely. Gentlemen, we have a take. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Absolute
you.
pleasure. And this is very interesting. Lovely views. I can only imagine had we really been sitting there, it would have got a lot more interesting. But then, well, virtually, there's only so much that we can do. But thank you so very much.